All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video, the panel on Dr. Phil will be talking about reparations. Is it good? Is it bad? Will it fix anything for the black community? They're going to be getting down to the nitty gritty of it. This man right here, Bob Woodson, who they're calling a civil rights activist, is not one in the way you would think. Definitely not one of these new age type of civil rights activists. He's more of an old school conservative values type of guy. And he doesn't think that reparations will fix any of the real underlying issues in the black community, to the contrary of what most black, pro-black civil rights activists think nowadays. And before we start, I just want to say shout out to the Dr. Phil show. A lot of people give him criticisms for not really taking a stand, being in the middle on everything. But at least on his show, there's actual representation of real people on the right, and the left, and they come down and have a conversation and they air out their grievances and they don't hold back punches. He had Matt Walsh on the show and other conservative people. He got Bob Woodson on the show. There are shows like The View where you have people who are supposed to be conservative, but they just sound like Democrats. So at least the Dr. Phil show is really letting real conversations go down, letting genuine conversations happen between people with conservative values and liberal values, and people on both sides of the fence on so many issues. But with that out the way, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe while we watching. Now let's roll it.
You don't support reparations. Why not?
Not everybody suffered equally. I mean, when you go into slavery, it's much more complex than white people were the oppressors and black people were the victims. If you dissect it, you will find there were about 3,700 free blacks who owned 12,000 slaves, black slaves. The question is, do the descendants of those free blacks who owned black slaves, do they pay? Blacks really benefited more the first 100 years after slavery than we have in the last 50 years.
38 seconds in and he making great points already. Like he said, there were black slave owners. So that fact right there sheds the narrative of whites owe blacks money. It's easy to oversimplify slavery, but if you want to do this reparations thing accurately, or if you just want to have an accurate knowledge of the past, then you can't try to simplify things. You got to really know what went down. So with that being said, according to his statistics, there will be black families and black people who owe other black families and other black people money, not only white people to black people. Also, the oversimplification of slavery leads a lot of people to believe that every white person, every white family had a slave. In different states, there were different percentages of white people who owned slaves, but no matter how you slice it, no matter how you add it together, the number does not equal 100%. So the oversimplification is something that needs context and is so nuanced when you want to talk about giving reparations and doing it right, doing it accurately. You need to have that context, and you need to have these conversations with more detail.
I was born in 1937 during the Depression. Everyone in my small, low-income black community, 98% of the households had a man and a woman raising children. Elderly people could walk safely in that community without fear of being assaulted by their grandchildren. Never heard a gunfire during that time. Never heard of a child being shot to death in the crib. But there are 50 children today who have been shot and killed in our cities. If you're talking about remedies, we've got to look beyond saying that every solution has to have a winner and a loser.
To reiterate what he said about 20 seconds ago, he said that the black community was better off 50 to 100 years after slavery, even in the lower income neighborhoods, than they are now. You never even heard gunshots. You could walk around late at night and not have to worry about being robbed, being shot by one of your own grandkids. The family structure was more tight-knit and together. Black people were unified. And that goes against what a lot of people say today when they say that where there's poverty, there has to be high rates of crime, because that was not always the case. So that means that something changed culturally, something changed spiritually. There's been a tremendous shift in the morals and the value systems in these black communities, in these lower income black communities. The way I see it, when things are bad in a community where there's poverty, there aren't as many opportunities, so to speak, you can either come together and create more, come together and do the right thing, or you can act out in a bad way that just further damages the community. And that's what we see today.
That blacks can only benefit if whites lose. We have to be defined more than just victims of oppression. When whites were at their worst, blacks were at their best. When we were denied access to hotels, we built our own. We have to communicate to our people the history of how they achieved in the face of oppression. But if we continue to sit back and say all of the challenges that we face in out of wedlock births, of violence, that somehow the control of that is in the hands of white America, and therefore until white people change, there's nothing that we can do. This sets up a terrible situation for this nation. The big crisis facing America is not racial. It is a moral and spiritual freefall that is consuming our children.
Bravo, hand claps, standing ovation. He's cooking right now. Because the reality is when you paint a whole race of people as a victim, when you give a whole race of people the victimhood mentality, you take away personal accountability from them. If black people at large, you know, went through this shift of thinking, you know what, things are bad, but we can do something for ourselves to change it. When you go from that type of mentality to things are bad, it's all white people's fault, they need to give us reparations so that things can change, that's dangerous, because it sets up the precedent that the only way we will see our way out of, you know, the hole that we're in now is by being given, you know, some sort of handout or some sort of favor from the government. Or like he said, that white people have to change in order for us to change. He said that when white people were at their worst, we were at our best. Like, how amazing is that? And that's why I think guys like this are a novelty. Guys like Thomas Sowell are a novelty. And I really don't understand how people in the black community hate on guys like this, these older gentlemen like this with this type of outlook on the situation, because, you know, he ain't no spring chicken. He's getting older, and, you know, sooner than later, he won't be around no more to give this perspective. So, yeah, I think we need to value voices like this in the black community and you know, and highlight them more and hear more what people like this have to say who have a different perspective. Because, you know, begging for reparations, what is that going to do? You can't throw money at a spiritual, moral, cultural problem and assume that that'll fix it. Shame to those who do wrong, but it's the way that you get up when you've been wrong that will shape your future. And the antidote for the wrongdoings done to us back in the day, they paid off a lot better than the antidote that is being, you know, pushed today. That we need reparations and we need more handouts and we need more opportunities.
The highest death rate among black families is homicide. Among Silicon Valley, the highest level of suicide, 6 times the national average. In Appalachia, there are prescription drugs. And so if we are to address this crisis that is causing our children to lack a sense of personal responsibility or value for their own life, they will take their own life or take someone else's. So in order to address that, we must come together and look beyond race and realize America is drowning because it's in a moral and spiritual freefall. None of us should be defined by the worst of what we were in the past, but we should be defined by what we want to become in the future, and that people are motivated to change when you give them a vision of victories that are possible, not constantly reminding them of injuries to be avoided.
He just hit another verbal home run. I mean, just to comment on that quickly, like he said, America is declining. You know, a lot of people are critical of conservative black people who want to highlight the black community. But the reality is that the black community our numbers are leading in a lot of these negative metrics. You know, homicides, black people leading it. Violent crimes, black people leading it. Out of wedlock births, black people leading it. So it's not like only black people are getting worse. We've seen a rise in the percentage of out of wedlock births and a rise in the percentage of divorces with white people as well. So that goes to show you that it's an American problem. But if you want to fix the problem, you won't do that by putting the blame on another group of people for one certain group of people's problems. You have to address the problems head on without fear. You got to call it like it is.
I think it's not either or. I think it's and. I think we can do both. We cannot ignore the reality of systemic racism and how it's affected the Black community. You can't just be like, we need to just focus on our own issues. The violence is happening in the Black community, it's the Black people's fault, and we need to focus on that. Actually, it's a lot of things. So we can't just separate them and be like, just focus on yourselves, don't worry about racism. It's finding us. It finds us wherever we go. It's not our fault, right? So what you're saying is we need to focus our issues on ourselves and not wait for this. No, we can do both. We can get reparations and we can work on issues within our community as we have always been doing. But we need to start removing the barriers that are there that shouldn't be there.
How have we been working on things in the Black community if things have only continued to get worse? You know, I'm only 27 years old, but since as long as I can remember these type of conversations happening, you know, the blame has always been put on white people for as long as I can remember. You know, we never talk about the negative things affecting the Black community as far as like the gangs, gang culture, rap culture, you know, promoting negative things to be cool and promoting good things to be bad, like talking proper is talking white. You know, the kids that were smart were nerds and lames and things like that. I could go into more detail about those things. She's entitled to her own opinion. However, I just don't think reparations will fix or solve anything. So, all right, guys, you're seeing that. You heard him on Dr. Phil. I want to play a couple of minutes of this video right here. Robert Woodson, Race in America, Economics. And I'm going to just let him cook for a couple minutes. Now, let's take a look at this.
Social scientists, liberal social scientists at Columbia University School of Social Work, Clowen and Piven, came up with this social construct that says that the Black community, if we want to really emphasize the contradictions of capitalism, then one of the ways that we can do that is to insist that Blacks, welfare to Blacks, be given as reparations. And at the time, public aid to Blacks was really stigmatized in the Black community. To overcome that stigmatization, the social scientists at the time began to promote the notion that the nuclear family was Eurocentric and therefore racist. They concluded that if we can separate work from income and replace it with welfare, it would make the fathers redundant in homes.
And how ironic is it? And I'm going to let them keep cooking, but how ironic is it that the liberals back in the day were saying that the nuclear family was racist and Eurocentric. And now you have Black people saying and preaching these exact same things. You got Black people today who are preaching and promoting things that aren't even in the interest of Black people. How is nuclear families a bad thing? How is a mother and a father being married and raising their kids the right way? How is that a bad thing? Someone please tell me how that's racist and Eurocentric. It's upside down things like that liberal whites and Blacks are promoting to Black people that are a negative impact on us.
Well, this social construct was supported by the Black Power movement that saw the nuclear family too as Eurocentric. Also, welfare policies were destigmatized. It was considered reparations. But just having a social policy alone was not enough. The federal government, through the opportunity offices of the poverty programs, actually opened government offices and actively recruited Blacks into the welfare system. Privacy laws, suits were filed so that women who were pregnant out of wedlock no longer had to declare paternity as a condition of them getting welfare. And so it's the combination of the events that you saw the explosion of welfare. People, millions began to flow into the welfare system. The liberal social scientists concluded that if we could only bankrupt our cities, then the federal government would be compelled to change how we address poverty by having income redistribution. So it was really socialist aims at the time, and the Black community was the agent through which they would promote this dramatic change. And as a consequence, millions of blacks flowed into the welfare system at a time in New York when the unemployment rate for black men was under 4%. And so what was predicted actually came true. There was an explosion of out-of-wedlock births. And so that number of black Americans, the black family formation rates went from 85% to out-of-wedlock births to 70%. And all the accompanying social pathology followed: dropout rates, violence, disintegration of families. All of these pathologies occurred at one time in the black community, and in '73, New York City did in fact go bankrupt because of the explosion of welfare.
All right, guys, so you heard that. Robert Woodson dropping some facts and some history on us. The socialist cure, unfortunately, was worse than the disease. And we still pushing forward with this same notion that played the biggest role in our demise. We still moving forward with it and championing it. We need handouts. We need welfare. We need this. We need that. No, we need to take personal agency. We need to start doing for ourselves again. We need to start marrying and staying together and raising kids with good morals and values again. We need to come together again and reshape the value system within the black community. There's no dollar sign, no dollar figure that you could throw at a lack of morals and actually watch it and expect it to change. It just won't happen. I won't say that money is completely irrelevant with the inflation, financial craziness, and potential crisis that we have on our hands in this country, but I know that money is not the solution. But that's all I got for you guys. Let me know what you thought about this in the comments down below. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe on your way out the door. And until next time, you guys, I'm out of here. Peace.